Revolution. My name is Chelsea. We haven't got the chance to meet yet. My family and I have been attending Revolution for the last 4.5 years, and we absolutely love it. I'm so excited that you decided to join us this morning on this online platform experience. We know that during this season right now that normal has shifted quite a bit. So we're going to take a look at what a new normal can really mean for all of us. So today we're so excited that we get to hear a message from a good friend of ours, Eric McCoy. He's going to help us as we navigate this new normal. So we'll hear from Eric in a moment, but first we want to connect with you. What's something that you have been doing during this new normal time that you want to continue on? We encourage you to hashtag New Normal Revolution on any social media platform you use. We'll be gathering these and sharing them each week as we continue to meet together. Life groups at Revolution have been meeting digitally for a few weeks now. So whether that's a FaceTime or a Zoom meeting or just a video chat, they're still staying connected with each other. What an awesome thing to see and hear. Now we know that not everybody is currently involved with a life group, but we would love to be able to change that. If you're interested in getting involved, please send an email to connect@revolutioncc.org and we will get you connected and plugged in. Now, we'll hear a story of a couple who is continuing to stay plugged in and connected to their life group during this time.
Hey friends, this is Nate and coming at you, and I have my good friends Alan and Rachel Hinshaw and their little baby Rebecca. So introduce yourselves and how are you kind of connected at Revolution?
I'm Alan Hinshaw, and I play in the worship band at Revolution, and that's probably the biggest way that I'm connected.
I'm Rachel Hinshaw, and I play in there too. I play keys.
Nice. And that's baby Rebecca. Look how cute she is.
She hasn't played anything yet. Her hands are too small.
And she is 6 weeks old?
She is 3 months old.
3 months old, which is like 6 weeks, but more than twice as much. So what is something for you guys that has been a part of this new normal, just in your lives?
So recently we've been doing a lot of Zoom call meetings, just like this one, meeting with both of our families as well as friends, life groups, groups playing games together. Rachel has been talking to trombone sections from college years past,
Nice.
From over 10 years ago. So just lots of online connecting with people that we may not have connected with before.
Mm-hmm. It's been really great because like my family lives in Chicago and his family lives in Richmond, so we don't really get to see them, and we just discovered that we could like see each other every week if we wanted to using videos. So that's been really cool, and saying hi to people, checking up where they are, and suddenly everybody kind of cares and wants to know where you're at, and people you would have never thought of before. So it's been really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that you bring that up because, I mean, we talk about kind of the power of connection a lot, you know, at Revolution. And so, and actually, I mean, you guys are in a life group, right? I know that because I am also in that life group. What pushed you guys to join a life group?
I mean, we had always kind of been those people where we said, okay, well, we're in the worship band, and that's our life group, which it is like a life group, but not the same. Or we'd say, okay, well, we play softball in the summer, and that's our life group. And so it was just kind of cheating around the answer. And I think you just kind of came right out and said, hey, we're starting a life group. It's young families. You don't have to have a babysitter for anything. Like, join us. I think it helped that we knew you and knew maybe one other family in there, one or two. And so it just kind of, it took somebody outright asking, and we said, yeah, like that would be a good idea.
Maybe someone just even needs to hear that today, that like, you know, maybe there's someone that you need to ask, like, hey, someone you need to ask to join your life group, because that might be the little bit of push that they need. Mm-hmm. How has still being in a life group and us still meeting weekly, how has that impacted you guys during the season?
Yeah, it's definitely a way to get out of your home life, I guess, for just a little bit, and meet with people that are not actually there with you. So whether you're feeling alone or stressed out because of things at home or things that you have to do, it's nice to get away just for a little while and meet with people that are feeling the exact same way.
And you think it's not like, oh, it's not the same, we're on video, but really, like, we haven't seen you in forever in person, but the one time we did, I was like, oh, it's just Nate. Like, we just talked to him yesterday. I'm like, what? No, we talked to him on a video. Like, it's really a lot more similar than you'd think. So it's really nice to still be able to see people and catch up and talk to them and see life, even if it hasn't changed that much.
Awesome. Well, I guess last question I have, like, is there anything you would say to people who are not in a life group but maybe have thought about that or whatever? Any advice or anything you would say to them?
I'd say that for us, I think because we were so busy, it came down to, well, we don't think we have time. You know, we were at school really late and had contests on Saturdays, and we're in, multiple ensembles. And once we kind of joined, and then shortly after we were quarantined at home all the time, we realized that, or at least I realized that I needed to make a priority of not being so busy, not overcommitting and being, home and relaxing, but also being with Rebecca more. So I think that was kind of a poor excuse for us, and that if we hadn't had this quarantine, maybe we wouldn't have realized that we needed to prioritize the time and make time for important stuff.
And it also may be a little intimidating to get into a small group with people that you may not know, and that can be strange at first, but it really wasn't that way at all. And you kind of meet people on the first night, and then they're just a part of your group, and they become really good friends very, very quickly. So that was a great addition to our life, meeting new people very quickly and having that weekly now.
Awesome. Oh, I love it. Well, hey, thank you guys so much for taking time, especially with baby Rebecca, for joining us. And anything else you guys want to say to our church or our community today?
Just to stay safe, and things have kind of gotten a little balloony over there in Cass County, so everybody stay safe. We want to see everybody again.
All right. Well, hey, thank you guys so much. We love you, and we can't wait. Thanks again for sharing, and we can't wait to see you again.
Bye.
Thanks for having us, Nate.
Thanks for sharing, Hinshaw family. What an awesome thing to hear. Before we hear Eric speak, I want to invite you to sing along to a few songs with us. Songs that talk about not only who God is, but how He's going to continue to help us in this new season of life. So whatever worship looks like for you these days, whether that's standing in your living room and belting out the lyrics at the top of your lungs, or doing some dishes and praising Jesus, or snuggled on the couch with someone you love, join us and sing along. No worries though, friends. Social distancing rules applied, and all proper precautions were taken during the recording of the video.
I'm moving forward to follow after you, and now I'm ready for whatever you want to do. Your presence is an open door. I want you, Lord, like never before. Your presence is an open door. So come now, Lord, like never before. In every season, your grace has been enough, and I'm believing the best is yet to come. Speak for me, my hope on things above, and in you, Jesus, the best is yet to come. Yeah. Your presence is an open door. We want you, Lord, like never before. Your presence is an open door. So come now, Lord, like never before. Come on, this is our hope today. I know breakthrough's coming by faith. I see a miracle. My God made me a promise and it won't stop now. I know breakthrough's coming by faith. I see a miracle. My God made me a promise and it won't stop now. I know breakthrough's coming by faith. I see a miracle. My God made me a promise and it won't stop now. Won't stop now. I know breakthrough's coming by faith. I see a miracle. My God made me a promise and it won't stop now. Cause you're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down.
Let the King of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. And let the King of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, he is my song. 'Cause you are good. You're good. Oh, 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 let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, he is my song. And let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song.
Come on, sing it again, the King of my heart.
And let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song. 'Cause you are good. You're good. Oh,
You're never gonna let me down. Come on. You're never gonna let me down. Oh, this I know. You're never gonna let me down. You claim that today. You're never gonna. Come on, over your homes, over your family, over this community, let's sing. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. Yes, I know. You're never gonna let me down. You are good. You're good. Oh, you are good. You're good. Oh, you are good. You're good. Oh, you are good. You're so good. Oh, come on. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna and I cling to that promise today, Lord. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. You are good. You're good. Oh, you are good. Sing it out. You're good. Oh, you are good. You're good. Oh, you are good. You're good. Oh. We know that you're good, God. Not because of the circumstances we're in, but because you've demonstrated your goodness over and over and over again in our lives, God. God, whether it's by taking care of us financially, whether it's by giving us food to eat and a roof over our head. God, I think of my friend Mike, who you cured from cancer this week, and he was found to be cancer-free. God, your goodness there. We praise you for your goodness, God. And we thank you that you are good. You are good, good. Oh, you are good. You're so good. Oh, you are good. You're good. We sing, oh, you are good. Good. Oh.
All right, well, this is the second week of our new normal journey. So glad you're joining us as we just take this next step on the journey of figuring out this new normal that God has for our lives and our families, our community, beyond that, our church. And so glad you're joining us. Last week we talked about how it seems like the question on everyone's mind right now is, when are things going to go back to normal? But the question we want to ask on this journey is, what if we went back to a new normal? What if we brought a better normal to our lives than the normal that we had before this crisis started? A new normal. Today's talk is going to be delivered by Eric McCoy. Eric is the campus pastor of Northview Church, their Peru campus in Peru, Indiana. And Eric is an amazing communicator, an incredible friend. We've had some great conversations over this past year where he has challenged me, he has encouraged me, and I believe he's going to do that for you today. There's going to be a challenge, there's going to be some encouragement. So let's just join Eric as he brings us week 2 of New Normal.
What's up, Revolution? My name is Eric, and I am so excited to be with you. And before we jump in today, I just want to take a second to let you know that we are praying for you through this season, and we are so proud of you and the way that you have navigated these changing times. Like so many organizations, I know you've had to pivot from your normal rhythms, from the normal ways that you gather together and do church. But I just want you to know that as somebody from the outside who's been looking in, I'm so proud of the way that you have kept the mission front and center, that you've remembered that church is not about buildings or gatherings. It's about people, and it's about this mission to introduce people to Jesus. And so I just want you to know that you're doing a great job, and that God is going to continue to use this season in a really unique way. So keep going, and we're honored to be with you through it all. Today, we're going to continue a conversation that Anthony, our lead pastor, kicked off last week called The New Normal. And I love that we called this not another series that's just going to last a certain number of weeks, but we called this a journey that we're going on together. So we don't know how long this journey is going to be. We actually don't even know where it's going to lead altogether. But what we're believing through this time is that God wants to do something new in us as individuals, in us as a church, and through us for the sake of the people that we're called to serve. We believe that there is a new normal that God is leading us to, and that he's going to lead us through that as well. So we're leaning in, and we're asking questions about how God may want us to navigate this journey together. So I think journey is a great word to use to describe this thing that we're on together. But there's another word that I've been using with my family and my team to describe this time, and that word is season. And if you're joining us from Indiana today, like I am, you know this is the time of year where it seems like the season changes maybe every other day. I mean, we've had days in the past few weeks where it's been snowing. We've had days where it was like 70 degrees. Sometimes that's the same day. Like you wake up and it feels like winter, but then by the afternoon, it's amazing outside. And that's just kind of part of it, living here in Indiana. But wherever you're joining us from today, we've all experienced the change of seasons. And sometimes seasons change kind of gradually. Like I think about the change from summer into fall, where you may notice the leaves starting to change a little bit, but in general, the weather still feels nice. You can still go outside and still do a lot of the same activities. So it's this gradual change from summer into fall. Other times, the change of a season, it's more dramatic. It changes overnight. Sometimes leaving fall and moving into winter, when we have that first snow, if we have a big one, it feels like, oh my gosh, winter is here, and we're coming into the end of a year. So seasons can change slowly. Sometimes they change dramatically. And this season that we're navigating together with the virus, for me, it was dramatic change. I mean, I can remember I was in meetings on Wednesday of the first week that we started navigating this thing together. And we were planning for business as normal. And by the end of the day on Thursday, just one day later, we were completely changing our plans, completely pivoting, and feeling like, oh my gosh, normal has changed. We're stepping in to something new. This is a new season. And the reason I want to talk to you today about seasons is because I think it's important for us to be aware when seasons change. That if we don't recognize when a season is changing, if we don't prepare and actually change with the season, then we can miss out on what that season is intended for. Let me tell you what I mean. If you looked outside the window that I'm looking out right now, we're hanging out in my living room right now, but if you looked out the window, you would see my backyard. And I would be so embarrassed for you to see my backyard right now because it looks pathetic. There are just patches of dirt where there's supposed to be grass, and it's a mess. The soil is all compacted and nasty and dry and cracked. And there's actually this thin layer of algae that's just started growing in our backyard. It's like I need to trade in my man card because it looks so bad. But the reason my yard looks like that is because for the past 4 years, every time summer starts to transition into fall, I've told my wife, hey, I need to make some plans to plant some grass back there. I mean, I've got to take care of the lawn. I've got to fertilize things and get it all ready for next season so that it's going to be great the next time around. And I've even gone as far before as to go out and buy grass seed and buy fertilizer and get ready for that season, only to miss the season when it comes. I can't tell you how many times I've had the stuff, I've been ready to go, And next thing I know, it's snowing. And I realize, oh my gosh, I missed fall altogether. And then all of my plans, all of my preparation, sometimes all of the stuff that I've bought to make that yard look amazing for the next season, it's wasted because I didn't recognize this season when it came. And it's one thing, to have a bad looking backyard. It's another thing to miss it when a season changes in our lives, when a season changes in our relationships, when a season changes in our worlds. What I want to do with our time together today is I just want to help you maybe be aware that we're in a new season together. We're stepping into a new normal. And I want to give you some tools from the scriptures to help you maybe identify where you're at in this season, in this journey that we're on together, and to really practically take some steps to lean in to the new that God may want to do in and through you. One of my favorite books of the Bible is the book of Ecclesiastes. It's found in the Old Testament, and one of the things that I love about it is it kind of talks about life just as it is. It talks about the good and the bad. And one of the most famous verses is Ecclesiastes 3:1 that says, "There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under heaven." And here's what I believe, guys. I believe that verse applies to this season that we're in together, to this journey that we're on in discovering a new normal. And to be really clear about what I mean, I don't for a second believe that God caused this virus, but I do believe that he wants to use it. I do believe he wants to use it to create something new in us, that this is a season that God specifically wants to use. In the book of Proverbs, it says this, that many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. And I don't think that's ever been as true as it is during this season. Many of us had a lot of plans, and we can probably all remember sitting around seeing plans continually get canceled. But what I want you to recognize today is that God's plan for you isn't canceled. That God's purpose for you in this season, on this journey that we're on together, it's not canceled, that it actually prevails, and that God does want to do something in you through this time. So the question I would love for us to explore together is, what does God want to do in you through this season? And how can you actually set yourself up to recognize this season for what it is and to open yourself up to what God may want to do? And to help you do that, I want to give you a framework for discovering a new normal. We're going to discover it by looking at the New Testament letter to the church in Rome. It's written by the Apostle Paul, and unlike a lot of Paul's letters, this one doesn't necessarily have a specific issue or circumstance that he's writing to this church about. We don't exactly know why he was writing it. A lot of scholars think this was one of his later letters as Paul was getting ready to go and hopefully plant a church in Spain, and that maybe he was thinking Rome would be kind of a home base for him as he continued to move forward the message of Jesus. At any rate, it's one of Paul's most read letters. It's one of the most famous books of the Bible, where Paul goes on and explains at a really high level everything that God had done through Jesus. And we're going to pick things up today in chapter 12. And what Paul has done throughout this letter is he spent the past 12 chapters talking about the amazing thing that God has done through Jesus. That God had raised up Jesus to fulfill his promise, to offer salvation to everyone, and how that really did change everything. And then Paul makes a transition at the start of chapter 12. And he starts to move from this kind of lofty theological talk into a little more of a practical advice on what it meant to live in light of what he had just said. And so for us, I think we can look at this and begin to see this framework on how we can practically live as we navigate a new normal. So Paul picks things up in Romans chapter 12, verse 1, and he says, "Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy." And I want to pause this right there. We'll come back to this idea a little bit later, but I just want you to recognize with me that as Paul is making this shift into some practical advice that we can actually apply in finding our new normal, he's saying that it's not like, hey, those past 12 chapters, I just talked about some really cool, lofty stuff, and now let's get to the meat. He's actually keeping his focus the same. He says, look, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, in view of everything that I was just talking about in terms of salvation and eternity and what it means for us, we can live a different kind of way. And then he goes on and he offers some instruction that I think can give us 3 different lenses through which we can view this season that we're navigating together. The first, he goes on to say that you should offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. And so for you, this season, maybe it needs to be a season where you practice surrender. Maybe it's a season where you need to sacrifice something towards God. And you may be thinking, Eric, this is a season where I've had to sacrifice so many things. I mean, my normal is gone. My rhythm is gone. Do you know how many things I've had to surrender to God? And I get that. I mean, in so many ways, this has absolutely been a forced surrender on many of us, where we had to let go of our plans. We had to let go of our expectations. Some of us, maybe you're navigating the real extremes of this thing, and you had to let go of your job. Maybe your finances look like a wreck right now. Maybe it's impacted your health. I mean, this is such a serious thing that's impacting all of us differently, and I want to be sensitive to that. But if you're at all like me, I think there's a temptation for us to be forced to surrender in some ways, but not to really surrender at a heart level, our own expectations, our own efforts. I've found this tendency in myself as the old normal has gone away to just want to strive even more. I found myself busier than ever, even though our weekend services don't look like they typically do, even though my job doesn't look like it typically does, my family rhythms look so different. I found myself still striving, still trying to control things. And what I want to challenge you in today is, what if in this season, God is actually inviting you to trust him more by acknowledging and surrendering control? For many of us, this season has been a wake-up call that we don't control nearly as much as we think that we do, that we actually don't control our destiny. And when times are good, it can be easy to lose sight of that. But in this moment, I think God wants to use this season to create a new normal of trust as we learn to offer ourselves to him, recognizing we don't control the outcomes of very many things in our life. All that we can do is trust and offer ourselves back to God. There's a famous psalm, Psalm 46, and towards the middle of it, there's this verse that many of us may have heard before. It says, "Be still and know that I am God." But there's another translation that I think really hones in on this season in a unique way. It says in the New American Standard Version, "Cease striving and know that I'm God." It's not just about like, be still, go to a quiet place. It's about our inner life. It's about stopping this striving for control, this desire to be able to hold every outcome in our hands, but instead to recognize that God is on the throne, that God is in control, and that actually by giving up, by surrendering, by opening ourselves to trust his control for our lives, we actually open ourselves up to experience freedom. See, it's counterintuitive, but surrender is actually the pathway to our greatest freedom in life and in our relationship with God. And sometimes I think surrender can be as simple as surrendering to the brutal, honest facts of where we're at. It may be for you. What God wants to do in you as we navigate a new normal is he wants you to be honest with him for the first time. He wants you to admit that this is hard and that you really want to be able to control things. You really want to be able to control your schedule. You really want to be able to control and find security in your finances. I challenge you, if you find yourself in that space, surrender it to God by being honest to God, by acknowledging the brutal facts of your reality and trusting God with it. Just saying, God, here I am, and you can have me exactly as you find me today. Maybe for you, that's what practicing surrender in this season looks like. I would say surrender is something that has to happen daily for me. And I recognize the days where it does happen and the days when it doesn't. If I wake up and my feet hit the floor and I try to just start running, especially right now, if I try and start running in my old rhythms, really quickly I find myself frustrated. I find myself striving to try and get some control, to try and make plans for an uncertain future. And it leads me to this space of frustration. But if I slow down, if I recognize that I need to start my day and surrender to God, and actually spending time with God by reading his word, by praying to him, by inviting him to lead me in this season, it can change everything for me. So surrender, it's not something we do once to God, and then we just settle back and try and navigate life on our own. Surrender is a rhythm that we have to practice, especially in this season, every single day, where we choose to say, God, it's not about my plans. It's not about my desires. It's not about everything that I want or everything that I expected for this time. I want to give myself to you. And in giving myself to you, I want to open myself up to what you may want to do in me and through me for this time. So maybe for you, that's enough today. You need to practice surrender in this season. But the Apostle Paul goes on. He says this. He says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. See, trusting and surrendering to God, becoming that living sacrifice, it doesn't mean that we don't take action. It doesn't mean that we do nothing. It doesn't mean that we just kick back and wait. In fact, I would say that is more the pattern of this world. If I lean into the pattern of what I naturally want to do in this season, you're going to find me on the couch. You're going to find me just snacking my way through it, or binge watching TV shows, or video games have been my thing lately. When my stress level rises, I just check out and I want to just sit in front of the screen and do nothing. That's not what God wants for me. And it's not what God wants for you. God doesn't want you to waste this time. He doesn't want you to just sit back and wait. He doesn't want you to conform to a pattern of this world that says you should just escape. You should just hide. I mean, maybe for you, your escape is something more serious. Maybe you struggle with alcohol abuse, and this season has just been a trigger for that addiction. Maybe you struggle with depression, and this season has just flared that up for you. God said, don't conform to the patterns of this world, but rather be transformed by renewing your mind, by doing something, by cultivating habits that actually lead to the life that God wants for us. So for some of us, this season, it's not only a season of surrender, but it needs to be a season of care, where we focus on rhythms that actually lead us into the life that God wants for us. One of the most helpful tools that I've discovered in navigating my life's rhythms is this silly acronym that says RPMs or RPMS. And each of those things stands for an area of our life that we need to keep our temperature on in terms of our rhythms, in terms of what God is leading us towards. The R stands for relational. How am I doing with relationally connecting with people in my life? And I've found in this season, FaceTime is one of the greatest gifts ever for that. And I know we may all be experiencing Zoom fatigue and that whole deal, but I'd encourage you, man, do whatever it takes to connect relationally with the people around you in this season. Don't let the temperature fall on that rhythm, but figure out what it looks like for you to connect with people that you love. The P stands for physical. And honestly, this is one that I've been slacking in through this season because it's so easy for me to hit the couch and to not do anything physically active for the whole week. But one thing that I found that's helped is just getting outside, experiencing God's creation and getting a little vitamin D through the sun and taking a walk around the neighborhood. It is remarkable what that can do to my disposition, my temperament, and my ability to lean into what God may want for me during this season. So you got to pay attention to your physical rhythms. The M stands for mental. And with mental, I would even add emotional rhythms. Like, how are you doing really? And what are you learning through this season? Could be a good check-in for you to consider, what does my mental rhythms look like? Am I challenging myself in some way? Am I taking breaks? Am I getting rest? Am I processing the emotions of what I'm feeling as we navigate through a lot of change together? Navigating your mental rhythms can be a huge thing. And then S stands for spiritual. What do your spiritual rhythms look like in the new normal? Are you spending time with God, or is it going to the back burner? Are you intentionally seeking Him through prayer, through reading His Word, through connecting with other people who can encourage you along the way? All of these rhythms come together and help us be transformed through renewing of our mind. That RPMS rhythm can be a great check-in for you this week. And in fact, one way that I've seen people use this rhythm is to actually write it down and score themselves daily. To say, hey, how am I doing relationally on a scale of 1 to 10? Write that number down. Same for the other categories. And then day over day, track how you're doing. See how your rhythms are caring for you and are cultivating in you that renewed, transformed life that God wants. So maybe for you, surrender's not your thing. Maybe you're doing okay there. But what you need to focus in on during this season is creating some rhythms that actually lead to transformation, that lead to a renewed sense of who you are, who God made you to be, and what he wants you to do. And I'd encourage you, if that's you, use this RPMS rhythm just to keep track of how you're doing and maybe start some new habits in the midst of this season that we're navigating together. Well, what's incredible about this is what Paul says next. He says if we become this living sacrifice, if we surrender ourselves to God, and if we renew ourselves and become transformed through some of the rhythms of care that we create, he says, then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is. His good, perfect, and pleasing will. And here's what I want you to think about. There is going to be a new normal on the other side of this season. I know things are hard right now. I know it feels like we can't find our equilibrium. We can't figure out what normal is supposed to look like. But I believe wholeheartedly that God wants to use this season to create something new in you. And what Paul is getting at here is that if we're able to trust God in these ways, if we surrender to him, and then if we create rhythms that actually cultivate renewal in our lives, then we'll have the opportunity in this season to not only survive, but to begin to dream about what God may want to do next in us and through us. And don't miss this. So often we want to just rush to that part. We're like, God, just give me an answer. Just give me a plan. Just tell me how I'm supposed to navigate this thing. But getting clarity around what God wants for you only happens when we live out these rhythms of surrender and care in our lives. So here's what I want you to think about. There's a lot that we don't know right now, but there are some things that we do know, and there are some things that we can control. And so in this season, what does it look like for you to practice the things we've talked about? For you to actually practice surrender, for you to give yourself to God daily and ask him to lead you, to stop your striving, and to actually help you experience his presence. What does it look like for you to create a rhythm of care? Care for yourself relationally, physically, mentally, spiritually, and of course emotionally and all that as well. What does it look like? What do your rhythms look like? And how are you doing in practicing those rhythms as we're figuring out what it looks like in a new way? And then what dream might God want to plant in you through this season? What may he want to do next in you as we get on the other side of this and explore the future together? Here's what I want to go back to. At the beginning of this whole thing, Paul laid out a ton of stuff in terms of practicing surrender, cultivating these rhythms in our life and knowing God's will, dreaming about what he wants next. But he told all of us to practice these things in view of God's mercy. And here's what I want you to get today. So many of us, we know that we trust God with our ultimate reality. We know that we trust God with what's going to happen to us at the end of our life, that we're going to go to heaven, and we're totally comfortable trusting God there. But for many of us, it's a challenge to trust God right now. We trust God with our ultimate reality, but we struggle to trust him in our immediate reality. And one way that you can do that is to remember that the same God who holds your future holds you right now. That's the God that you're surrendering to. That's the God who wants to create something new in you. And that's the God who's going to come through for you as we step into this new normal together. God not only holds your forever, he holds your right now. And he wants to lead you in these rhythms of discovering a new normal together. So as we wrap up, here's what I want to challenge you to do. I just want to leave you with a few questions. And I would encourage you, whether you're hunkered down at home, maybe you could use these questions with your family this week to check in on one another in this framework that we're talking about. Maybe you're a part of a life group and you want to use these questions just as a check-in with your group this week as you're meeting together over Zoom or whatever that looks like. And maybe you're here and you're not yet a part of a group. Reach out to our team and we would love to connect you with people who could help you process this season together. But the questions are simply this. Where do you need to surrender? Where do you need to create a new rhythm? And what do you need to dream about during this season? Where do you need to surrender? Where do you need to create a rhythm? And what do you need to dream about in this season? Friends, if we practice this rhythm, this framework, I am so confident that God is going to lead us into a new normal. And he's going to help us discern and know what he wants us to do in this time together.
Well, hey, church. Man, what an incredible word from Eric. And Eric, thank you so much, buddy, for that challenge. And we're gonna leave those 3 questions up for just a few seconds here, so you can write those down if you need, or pause this and get them. Take a screenshot of it with your phone. But man, we encourage you to, just like he said, maybe take a few moments to talk through those with your family or whoever you're watching with, or better yet, take those to your life group and talk through those a little bit. And man, again, if you're not in a life group, we would love to help connect you with a life group. If you will send us an email at this email address that's going to pop up on the screen, connect@revolutioncc.org, we would absolutely love to help you get connected. And if you're in a life group, or maybe you even lead a life group, maybe today the challenge that you need to hear, and again, we said that earlier with Alan and Rachel Hinshaw, like maybe you just need to go and invite someone. Maybe there's someone that has been taking part of our online services, but needs a little bit of push with that next step of connecting. Man, you can be the one to reach out to them today and give them that little bit of a push. Invite them to join you in your life group this week. And if you're a life group and you haven't met or haven't been meeting in this digital season, man, we would absolutely encourage you to do that. There's several ways you can do it, whether it's Zoom or some other resources, even just FaceTime if you have iPhones. But what an incredible way for us to just encourage one another, to pray over each other, love on each other. And honestly, it helps a lot with that mental health a little bit that Eric has talked about in those RPMs. It's absolutely key for me to be able to have some interaction with other people throughout the week. And so it's a great thing to be able to do. Church, know that we love you. We are so thankful for each and every one of you that joins us each week. And I just want to say, we see it each week, but I just want to say a special thank you to those of you who have been contributing to the church in this season. Whether it's financially, or maybe you're serving on a team, maybe you're like Chelsea and want to help give the host spot, or different things like that. There's so many people that are helping make this happen, and to help that are helping keeping the mission of helping people find Jesus and live like him, making that happen. And so if you want to give today, there's 4 ways you can do that. They're going to come up on the screen here. And I would just encourage you, if you've never given before and are maybe a little hesitant, I would just challenge you to give today, because God blesses those who honor him by giving, especially in seasons of financial hardship. And so, man, make the choice to give today as a way of saying, God, I trust you. And I want to honor you. And so I'm going to do this knowing that you have my back, that you're holding me in your hands, that you are good, just like we sang earlier. And this week, as we recorded those songs, we actually recorded one more song that we want to share with you. My good friend Tracy wanted to sing this song over you guys. And this is just a truth that we are clinging to today. So sing along with us.
When he told you you're not good enough, when he told you you're not right, when he told you you're not strong enough to put up a good fight, when he told you you're not worthy, when he told you you're not loved, when he told you you're not beautiful, you'll never be enough. He will take your breath, stop you in your steps. Fear, he is a liar. He will rob your rest and steal your happiness. Cast your fear in the fire. 'cause fear, he is a liar. When he told you you were trouble, you'll forever be alone. When he told you you should run away, you'll never find a home. When he told you you were dirty, you should be ashamed. When he told you you could be the one that grace could never change. No fear, he is a liar. He will take your breath and stop you in your steps. Fear, he is a liar. He will rob your rest and steal your happiness. Cast your fear in the fire, 'cause fear, he is a liar. Let your fire fall and cast out all my fears. Let your fire fall, your love is all I fear. Let your fire fall and cast out all my fears. Let your fire fall, your love is all I fear. Let your fire fall and cast out all my fears. Let your fire fall, your love is all I feel. Let your fire fall and cast out all my fears. Let your fire fall, your love is all I feel. Oh, fear, he is a liar. He will take your breath and steal your happiness. Fear, he is a liar. He will rob your rest and steal your happiness. Cast your fear in the fire, 'cause fear, he is a liar. 'Cause fear, he is a liar.